Welcome to World Zero, where our character, our Golden Warrior, will take on this entire world, and he'll be able to go through different classes, different phases, different weapons, and different bosses all together. 10 different worlds he'll have to challenge, and he'll have to do it all on his own, but maybe, just maybe, he'll pick up a couple friends along the way. But it all starts in world number 1. So yes, here we are in world number 1, and it all started with a basic mission for me to kill boar wolves, learning what my new abilities were, with the idea of being able to spin my axe extremely quickly, and I even had a bit of a smash ability, and it seemed pretty basic, but I could take my axe, or some sort of axe that I was utilizing, and hover it over my head and slam it directly on the ground. But of course, the boar wolves are not the only things that I'd be taking on during this time, and I decided that I would kill some earth crabs just for some extra experience with my weapons, with my abilities, and such like that. But then I went on to face my very first dungeon of this world and very first dungeon of my journey. This dungeon was known as the Krabby Crusade. I thought this was a bit of an interesting name for a so-called dungeon, but hey, I guess I'll bite. I decided to go in there, and I saw this random annoying kid, and he was getting all messed up by some crabs, and he was saying something about his cabbages. And honestly, I mean, I was new to here, but I had a weapon and he didn't, so I decided to actually help the guy out. So after absolutely destroying some crabs, I was able to actually grab the first cabbage. I killed some birds, called some toucans, as well as I just straight up was spinning all around with my hook blade great axe. And honestly, for the sake of the cabbages, I even killed something known as the crabbage, who throws these bombs at me, and I basically was just spinning in circles trying to avoid the bombs the best I possibly could. But where the hell did he get those bombs? Like, where is he even hiding them in the first place? It doesn't even make sense to me, but I was able to defeat this monstrous crabbage and actually get the cabbages back for this, well, let's just call him a very useless damsel in distress. Now, after the dungeon, I did get some fire weapons, one being legendary, a legendary splinter great axe, but I'm gonna be honest, I can tell by this entire world that this weapon will soon become practically useless before you can possibly know it. My next mission was to go on and kill some snakes, and after doing some basic snake killing and snake, cutting up, leading me to adventure that same farm and actually checking out something known as scarecrow defense. It seems like there is a bit of an issue with crows and snakes hiding within the bushes, and these crows and snakes would come out, and basically I have to make sure that they don't destroy these scarecrows entirely. But what I didn't expect is, after a nice, simple run of just defending and killing these ravens or these crows and stuff like that, eventually I had to defeat something that was completely terrifying. It was this possessed raven that made me question if this was some sort of a demon bird. And let's just say it definitely wasn't one of the easiest challenges, and well, frankly, it's going to be literally the easiest challenge I faced to this point, or at least for the most part, it will be. So it kind of made me question if I still wanted to go through this entire world. If this was one of the easiest challenges I had to face, a crow or a raven that was completely and utterly possessed by some sort of demon, I don't know if I want to keep doing this, but luckily, I got some weapons and some other stuff that would eventually get replaced in the future, of course, but continuously upgrading my weapons is something that is, of course, extremely beneficial. But on top of that, I was able to get myself an egg. And this egg, I was actually able to get a bit of a fox creature. And this fox creature I decided to name Flamingo. And honestly, I was thinking, I kind of want to continue naming these pets that I get, and maybe if I can somehow come up with some good names in the near future, maybe some people that I meet along the way, that would be a good idea as well. Now, with that said, these pets they're gonna become part of my journey, but only one can truly follow alongside me, at least for the meantime. But overall, it seems like these pets are going to be very beneficial in the near future, and I continue on with my questing through actually defeating some alpha boars, being that of a different version of the original boars or boar wolves that I actually faced down at the very beginning of the journey. This would eventually lead me to the dire boar wolf dungeon, and I had to kill countless amounts of boar wolves or boar wolf-like creatures all alike, and it seems as if I continued on this journey leading me to a bridge, and this bridge was the time I realized everything was dead set for real, because a bunch of people were screaming, running for their lives, and straight up this boar wolf creature, this big boar wolf, just chomped down on all of them, killing them instantaneously right in front of me, even breaking the bridge that was literally in front of me that I was about to cross. Like, what does this thing, like, eat? Like, what is this thing even doing? I mean, what are they feeding this thing for it to be this big and this powerful? But I knew I had to get my kind of avenge on, in terms of I had to make sure I could avenge these people that really got caught in the crossfire, with me being, I guess, a little late to the party. Maybe if I was a little earlier, I could have defended or even saved them during this time, but that's not something I can actually think about. I gotta get on with everything else I gotta do, which this would lead me to almost getting crushed by a boulder as it comes barreling down toward me down a bit of a mountain to stop me from actually heading to the main boss. But luckily enough, I was able to evade this giant boulder, heading off to another dire bear wolf or another dire boar wolf. But this was the true alpha of them all. But luckily, through the experience that I've gotten so far and basically my weapon and armor, my armor usage, I was able to defeat this dire boar wolf that was pretty damn big, if I say so myself, and I was able to get some new armor at the end of the dungeon, stuff that is going to help me along the way, and that's going to become a common occurrence as I continue to upgrade my items, upgrade my armor, upgrade my weapons, and so on and so forth. This would then take me on to the Crab Prince world boss in the first world, and it really showed me how capable some of these other travelers could truly be. And frankly, I'm going to run into some other travelers that are extremely powerful. Some that would maybe be just around the area or just stumble across the area that they've kind of just showed up in and decided to basically help out some of the lower tier like dungeons or lower tier like areas to make sure to kind of do their community service, you could even say, helping others out and making sure that everything seems or stays squeaky clean for the most part. And luckily enough, with the help of some of the other adventurers, I was able to get a bit of a great axe upgrade, and this would allow me to go on and continue with slaying some more mobs or monsters, where I slayed some more birds or toucans, and then I was able to be strong enough to take on another dungeon, and this dungeon was a little bit different. This dungeon was to save villagers, but like I said before, that I was going to be running into more powerful people right here and right now, and this dungeon was one of them. And I ran into somebody who was borderline basically a god, easily defeating all the foes in front of us, and frankly, I just watched as he was able to do this. I literally just watched as he walked through, destroyed, killed everything, saved the people. It made me realize how much further I had to go to become as strong as some of these other people. But I knew that with a little bit of help and also some grinding and some hard work, I was going to be able to get to that point. So I'm not too worried about becoming a god, quote unquote, this soon. But after the dungeon, and after we were able to clean up that dungeon, I was actually able to transform myself into the very next class, changing up my style, my fighting style, the look, and I would now be known as a guardian. And this would give me a different weaponry to utilize as well, where I donned a new sword and I was able to actually do quite a few different things. I was no longer the reckless spinning axe type of person. It was more methodical, and I definitely was able to tank on more aggro. The damage I was going to take was a little bit less, and I had some new moves where I could crack or smash the ground in, and also just do some other very, very cool things that I wouldn't have been able to as the initial version of myself. Now, with the new sword and new class, I then took on the last dungeon of the first world, and I must admit, the class upgrade and all of the above, becoming the Guardian, didn't help with the idea that facing down some of these creatures that would be in this dungeon was going to be terrifying. I had to face down ghoul knights, spirit horses, and vampire boar wolves that I could barely see. But luckily enough, I was able to take them down, and I was able to get through it. And eventually, I had to face down a tree guardian. And this was interesting. I've never seen these tree guardians, but this would be a small test or a small taste of what the real boss was truly going to be. Because that true boss was going to be exactly like the tree guardian, but a lot bigger. And this is when I would fight against the corrupted great tree Ent that tried to save himself with the help of his other goons. He'd basically go into a protective like shell, and I would have to more or less get him out of that shell. But eventually, with the new skills I've gained and so on, I was able to defeat the monstrous creature, cutting through its tree bark. Now though, with the final dungeon of World 1 being finally completed, I would then have traveled, or now travel, to World 2 to take on what seemingly is a brand new adventure. World 2 would start off with a actual world boss, and I would decide to do this because I definitely needed some new gear. This gear seems to be creeping up on me, so I decided I would take on a world boss with some help of some, other adventurers, and hope of getting some decent items, maybe a better weapon, maybe some better armor, and so on. And this world boss was something, I saw briefly coming into this world, but it was actually a giant poisonous flower, so I needed to make sure to be a bit careful in terms of not getting poisoned and not getting absolutely hit by its ranged attacks. But overall, we were able to defeat it with relative ease, getting agile knight armor that can help me with some mob killing I'll be doing soon. And that mob killing would begin with killing quillodiles, which were basically pink crocodiles. That's the gist I was getting out of it. It was a pretty basic creature, and I was able to basically smash my way through them, killing them with the sword and shattering the ground and so on. And I was able to kind of cut through them relatively easily, and this would set me up for pretty big confidence going into this first World 2 dungeon called Temple of Ruin. But actually, this wouldn't be anything to kind of slouch over, because I would be facing down spear goblins, something I haven't even really faced down yet. And this temple was full of booby traps, and some of you may have guessed that already, but this temple was full of them. We're talking spikes, we're talking anything you can think of in terms of traps. That's what occurred. But luckily enough, I was able to cut through these spear goblins, or goblins in general, and they seem pretty easy enough to handle, at least by myself. And this would eventually lead me to a trap that would end this dungeon, and this trap was leading me to the boss that I had to take down. But this trap was the walls were closing in, and it may have led me straight to the boss, but it was definitely a bit sketchy running, jumping, and sprinting down that corridor, hoping I wasn't gonna get made into an absolute pancake while I was on my way to fight some more goblins, but more importantly, also to fight a goblin knight. And this goblin knight was able to do a couple things, but for some reason I think having these melee matchups, it definitely benefits me greatly, especially if they're a bit slower, sluggish, and they don't have these ranged attacks that will hold me away from getting close to them. For the most part, I was able to easily finish the dungeon, and it would lead me to just getting into some more action as soon as possible. I still wanted a good weapon, so finding another world boss throughout this adventure made a lot of sense. And at the end of the day, I wanted to bolster my loot a bit, and well, we all were able to face down a dark goblin knight. Now, I was able to get some better armor, but not a better weapon. And that's the main thing I've been seeking for this entire time, was just flat out better weaponry. Now, even with that said, I can't slack on just continuously doing the dungeons that need to get done. Yes, I really want a new weapon, and I really feel like I need one, but I can't just wait around and not do the new dungeons because I can't get the perfect weapon that I need, right? So I decided to take on a new dungeon known as Mama Trauma, and which immediately got me absolutely terrified because I thought it was based on my childhood. I mean, my childhood trauma, of course, but still, it was a bit scary. But at the end of the day, it was actually just about some weird pink alligators that I faced earlier, so it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. I did have some help from someone named you, not you that is watching, or you that is listening to this. It was you. You. Never mind. As we faced more goblins and even a goblin knight, this would lead us to the true Mama Drama boss, being that of a Mama Quillodile. And let's just say in one swoop, my partner absolutely obliterated the boss. And frankly, I walked off pretty unscathed. Now, I'm going to be honest, I didn't really get much from this area, but still, that's okay. I had some other missions I had to get to or attend to, being that of defeating some poisonous cobras, and then eventually decided to actually take on another world boss against two goblin gatekeepers that looked like they were oozing magma. I mean, it looked like it could literally burn you to the touch, so your boy made sure to be careful when slicing them up. And I got a bit of a minor upgrade in terms of my armor, but nothing else beyond that. Like I said, I continuously get unfortunate drops, and I just don't unfortunately get the upgrades that I want with my weapon, but I'm sure soon that my luck will change just a little bit. I went on to kill some more poisonous flowers, and then took on the next Volcano Shadow dungeon, which this one was a lot different than you would expect. I mean, yes, I did the typical goblin killing and stuff like that, but I actually had to face a minion of Cerberus. Yes, a giant hellhound of a dog, and frankly, it was pretty damn terrifying having a demon dog send other demon dogs my way to basically kill me, and it gave me a bit of trouble, but he was far from the strongest version of himself. And I cut through basically some of these poisonous flowers that I had to cut through, heading up or scaling further and further up. But eventually I would go through these confined areas, and these were filled with goblins, minions, minions of Cerberus, and even another goblin gatekeeper once again. And this thing was pretty damn scary in terms of trying to defeat all of it. I mean, we have to deal with a demon hellhound. We got to deal with a goblin magma gatekeeper. Like, these things are not easy and not light work by any means. But nonetheless, probably the scariest thing had to be me jumping from pillar to pillar, like I'm doing some parkour with bubbling lava below me. But then this would lead me to actually fighting what I thought initially was Cerberus, but it was actually only the shadow of Cerberus. So this must have been a different version of him, or a power-like ability that he utilizes to more or less send out to take down some of his foes. But for now, I was able to actually take down the shadow of Cerberus, and it was far from easy, but with some of his, or because of some of his fiery attacks and other burns and stuff like that. But Luckily, I was actually able to take him down, but I knew that would not be the last I would be seeing of Cerberus. But of course, I had to get on with some of my other quests that were just around this world too, being that of some different killing of red goblins. Red goblins have variations that I had to make sure to take down. Some spears, some slingshots, some are kind of like a captain-like guy, stuff like that. It kind of varies overall, but for the most part, I had to make sure to take down these different versions of red goblins, and I was able to do so relatively easily. And of course, again, I would take on another world boss in hopes of getting some new items. And I decided I would actually change my class as we're approaching higher and higher levels of strength. I was finally able to learn the ways of the Berserker, granting me another kind of power-like spike, but I was now able to dual-wield axes or dual-wield weapons. And some of my abilities that I was then learning, the style of fighting that I was now doing, was a lot more aggressive, but a lot more just potent and powerful. I did finally get a new weapon, being that of a new great axe, that would definitely be able to be useful with my new plethora of skills. Now I finally felt it was time to actually take on the final dungeon of World 2, and I did actually end up getting some help, and it was of a very experienced adventurer. With his help against these creatures, it felt pretty darn easy. It seemed as if these creatures just fell over, but I definitely did my best in terms of just helping him out where he needed to be helped out. But overall, when we faced down Cerberus, the true volcano guardian, I watched him slay the monster, forcing him to run away, and then he faced the monster once again and absolutely obliterated the monster again almost instantaneously. And it was kind of wild to see the strength that this person had, and it made me realize that Cerberus, the true volcano guardian, would be the farthest from my worries soon to come, especially going into World 3. So before I even left, I decided I was going to take on one last world boss, and this world boss, after being defeated, was able to grant me a even better axe I could dual wield with. And after getting a bit of an upgrade and having some more confidence with my weaponry, I was then ready to enter the portal to head to World 3. A world completely covered in ice and snow. But this world is gonna have to wait, because the journey isn't over, but this is where the journey stops for now. Now, if you enjoyed the journey so far for our golden warrior, then make sure to show some love to the video. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, and tell me what you would like to see next in, well, on this channel or just in general. If you enjoyed the video, like I said, show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. But I don't want to keep you guys here any longer, because I'm sure we're all busy. So I hope y'all enjoyed, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.